What's going on Facebook? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world. So now what we're going to do is go into a little bit more in-depth discussion right now, and I'm going to try to make sure I stay on point. This is impromptu, always working on my impromptu speaking skills. One of the things I always admired about Malcolm X was he was a masterful impromptu speaker. That's something my mother always told me that you should always try to work on, because you never know at a moment's notice in which you're going to have to speak on something and you want to speak succinctly, but you don't want to ramble. So you want to make sure you get to the point, but you don't want to make sure you're rambling. And most people, they do something that a particular person I knew called, they speak past the point of sentence. But let's get back to the original topic. We're going to talk about how black leadership, right? So I think the original topic was how black people are abused by their leadership, how they are kind of abused with what I call prestige badge leadership, and your role and your responsibility in this abuse and what's going on. Because as a black person, you are a member of a community of black people, unless you're one of them black people that just live around a bunch of white people and you don't deal with black people. And if you do that, then this video is not going to be for you. However, if you're interested in black people and you're interested in the future of black people and you're interested in their well-being, this will be a really good video for you to kind of watch and understand and see, can we get eye to eye on some particular points? Because there's observations that I have made that I have, I wouldn't say issues with, but that are very interesting. But one of my biggest issues is the way black people, the way we deal with our quote unquote leadership. So let's get into it. So first we want to define what a prestige badge is, okay? So prestige badges are ways in which members of a society differentiate themselves from other members of the society, but they use it to kind of put themselves in an elevated situation. So not only are they different, but they want to seem as if they're elevated or respected. Now, prestige badges are not new. In fact, they're extremely old. So back when we was in Africa in tribes, we already started creating prestige badges, right? So a prestige badge can be that you're a very good hunter, and you may have some type of ornamentation that separates you from the other members of the tribe. Another prestige badge can be that you're a respected elder, and you may have some type of ornamentation or maybe some tattoos or maybe some type of tribal marks that separate you and differentiate you from other members of the tribe. This is very old. Okay, where I'm from, people have certain tattoos, and those tattoos differentiate you from other people. So based on what tattoo you have and where you have it, it kind of lets people know your prestige badge. So all human beings are involved in this. And this is something that we started doing in Africa millions of years ago. And we just brought it into the modern area, what we call the modern era. Now, I want you to understand this. The only way that you recognize a prestige badge is because you've already been persuaded and influenced as a very young person growing up to recognize that. So no child recognizes prestige badges, but at a very young age, they're already starting to be indoctrinated into recognizing and being deferential to people because of a specific prestige badge. And it can be culture by culture, environment by environment. It really based on that particular group of people. And then what people do is they'll form their own subculture and they create own prestige badges. So you see prestige badges inside black fraternities. Then you see people, when I was coming up, you got the Elks, you got the Prince Hall Masons. These are all prestige badges that these groups of people have created amongst themselves to differentiate themselves from members of society, but also because they want to be in an esteemed position. Okay, so we understand where this stuff comes from. It is not abnormal. In fact, it's very natural. Now, how does this fit into black people and their leadership? Let's get into it. The advances that we've made as black people in a modern society are a result primarily of poor and working class people, right? Advocating for change in this society. That's primarily, those were the actual boots on the ground, right? Going out every day. So if you look at when the Pullman Porters, right, when they organized, that's the first really mass labor organization of black people. It was a group of working class black men that worked on these trains. Now, they were organized by a member of the black fraternities. I think it was an alpha, but I'm not 100%, so don't quote me. But who helped bring about that organized labor movement was a college educated member of a black Greek fraternity. But the actual organization, the work on a day-to-day basis to organize those Pullman Porters was done by the Pullman Porters, who were working class black men who decided that we don't like the treatment on these trains. We're doing all the work. We're helping provide the experience, and therefore our treatment should be better. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? We moved to the civil rights movement. It was working class black people that helped bring a lot of the advances, right? That as black people, we were supposed to be enjoying, but got taken from us. And I'm going to go into why they got taken from us. Because this is what happened. Poor and working class black people started to organize themselves, right, around these particular civil rights issues. And the power structure came in and told those poor and working class black people, we hear what y'all saying, but we will only sit down with leadership that has our prestige badges. Now, what do I mean by that? We only going to sit down with leadership that has prestige badges that we as the Anglo-Saxon society that is in control of America, that we recognize as being prestigious. So what were they at that time? They was primarily what we call black clergy. So what America did was said, because we recognize black clergy as being prestigious, we will sit down, right? And we will allow them to mediate your demands and your challenges, right? And we'll let them be essentially a buffer between poor and working class black people, right? And the power structure. Now that on its face is nothing wrong with that. The problem is you got to understand something. And I keep trying to get black people to understand this. When you go to these institutions, and you allow these people to indoctrinate you and you accept it. You allow these people to brainwash you because you have to be brainwashed to accept some of the stuff these people are saying. You allow these people to brainwash you and you accept it. You take these people oaths willingly, okay? And you believe in the oath. You're not lying. You believe in the oath, right? We have to wonder, do these people have control of your psychology? See, something Amos wasn't taught us, right, is that you can take a black person and a white person and give them the equivalent education, but you won't produce the same person. Why? Because of socialization. So what happened was poor and working class black people was told, you have to appoint black people that have the prestige badges that the Anglo society has determined will make them acceptable. And then what we did was we put them into the halls of power to advocate on our best behalf. And you know what they did? They gave all our power back to the same society that we took it from. And that's what happened. And then now we still use these prestige badges because we think that's what makes us important. So you got the black clergy. So a black person will say, I'm a pastor, or, I'm a member of clergy, because to Anglo-Saxons, that gives you prestige. And the way black people think is if you got prestige with Anglo-Saxons, then therefore you got prestige with black people, because in black people's mind, Anglo-Saxons control the whole world. So you have black people that are part of doctrines that were created in Europe, right? And they take an oath or they adhere to that doctrine. Then white people tell those black people, well, this is an acceptable leader for you. So we got the black clergy. You got the black quote unquote academics and intellectuals. So you got black people that have went to predominantly white institutions. They've been educated primarily by white faculty, and they've gotten these white credentials. So you got black people running around with PhDs. And in their mind, black people would be better if they just allowed themselves to be educated, right? Because I'm tired of uneducated black people, right, being the face of black America. My question to you is this. How many years can a black person allow themselves to be educated in predominantly white institutions, right? Where their loyalty now is to an Anglo-Saxon power structure and not the black people. Because let me explain something to you. Education is not information. Education is indoctrination. And one thing we notice about black people, not just in the United States, but also in Africa, right? This is the difference between black people and Asians. Black people get educated by white people, right? And what we see, not just in the United States, but also in Africa, these people will make you not want to be black no more, right? You start to admire these people that are educating you. And then you become the protector of their power structure. Where if you look at Asians, let's take the Chinese, for example. The Chinese come over here to get educated. You know what they do? They steal everything they can get their hands on. Any information they can get their hands on, they steal it and they take it back to China. Why? Because they are not loyal to this power structure. They are coming over here with the intent to take everything from these Anglo-Saxons and to take it back to China and figure out how they can reverse engineer and build it to beat these people. I had somebody text me yesterday. There's a Chinese company called, I think it's called Huawei. It starts with an H, ends with an I. It's a telecommunications company, like a software company. And she was talking about how they're going to implement 5G in the UK. And you know what this person told me? The UK better be ready for them Chinese people to steal everything they got, because that's what they do. They're going to build their partnership with the UK to roll out that 5G technology. And any of information that they can get from the UK that they think is going to be beneficial to China, they're going to steal it and take it back to China. Why? Because they're not loyal to the UK. They loyal to China. So you can send a Chinese person, right, to an Anglo-Saxon institution of learning, and they don't get brainwashed by them people. They go in there and they trying to figure out how I can take everything I can take from these people and take it back to my folk. But when you're talking about black people, whether in the United States, whether in Africa, whether in the Caribbean, the majority of us, when we go into these institutions and learn, we become indoctrinated by these people, because the education is not just information, it's indoctrination. So they're literally changing your psychology. And when they get done changing your psychology, Carter G. Woodson told us that when these people get done changing your psychology, you no longer any good to black folks. So we see this all the time. So this black academic, this black intellectual is also part, right, of this prestige badge that black people like to talk about. Because I always question black people that's so much on this black stuff. Why do you keep throwing your education, your credentials in my face if you got those credentials from Anglo-Saxons? Why would it matter if we trying to do some black stuff? You didn't get those credentials from black people. Ain't like you went and studied in Timbuktu. Ain't like you went and studied in Alexandria and Kemet. So it don't matter to me that you went to Ohio State or you went to Michigan or you went to MIT. Why? Because those are Anglo-Saxon credentials. I'm not discrediting the work that you put in, but why would I see any prestige in that? Right? So that's the second group. Now we're going to go into the third group. That's people that put on the uniform. So whether they're going to be police or they want to go, are going to be military, that's another prestige badge. So why was Colin Powell, right, accepted by so many people? Because he had the prestige badge of Anglo-Saxons. He was very high up in their military. So the black people, he must be acceptable. He must be important. What comes out of his mouth must be valid, because Anglo-Saxons have allowed this man to move up to the highest levels of their military structure. So we see black people today will tell you, I'm credible because I was in the military. I'm credible because I was in the police. My question to them is, how come you ain't giving us their secrets? Because when you look at black people, whether we in the United States or off or in Africa, we join their militaries. They vet you to find out whether or not you're going to keep their secrets. So we produced a whole bunch of black people with military service, and we don't know nothing about the military structure, what they do, right? Because these people have taken an oath to hold Anglo-Saxon secrets. Same thing with the police force. We got black people that have been cops their whole life. They know exactly what these people get into. They're not going to tell you nothing. Why? Because they done took an oath to hold these people's secrets. They in a fraternity with these folks. I'm not saying they bad people, but they are in a fraternity with these people. So they've taken an oath to hold the secrets of this fraternity, which means they never going to tell them to you. Now, what kind of sense do that make? But see, we falling for the prestige badge. They wear a uniform. Therefore, because these people have awarded them this uniform, because they have all this ornamentation on their uniform, right? They therefore must be prestigious. So therefore, what comes out of their mouth must be valid. Now we finna get a little further down the road, because a lot of people don't want to talk about this. We also talk about people being married, right, as prestige badges, right? So we talk about the fact that you in a heterosexual relationship. So we see how politicians use the fact that they are in a heterosexual relationship as a prestige badge. Why? Because we live in a society where we consider that family, that little family presentation that you can put on as being prestigious. I'm not anti-family. I'm pro-family, but I'm trying to get you to see these prestige badges. So a lot of people will try to say to you, hey, I'm credible because I've been married 25 years. That's supposed to be a prestige badge to you. Now, let me ask you a question. How come it's only heterosexual relationships? How come a person can't come to you and say, hey, I've been in the same gender loving relationship for the past 25 years. That makes me credible? Because there's a personal bias against same gender loving relationships, right? So you can't use it as a prestige badge, but you can use the fact that you was in a heterosexual relationship as a prestige badge. So now we understand the prestige badges, okay, that are being used, right, to persuade and influence black people that these particular situations are valid. Now, what I want you to do is go look at the quote unquote black leadership and look at their prestige badges. What was the prestige badges of Obama? He had a Harvard education. That's one. He was married to a black woman. That's two. So because he had these prestige badges and because white people had brought him into their institutions and they tapped him as acceptable, black people therefore said he's acceptable and would not hold him accountable to nothing. Because they've already accepted that these prestige badges makes him valid. And you have to understand that. Now I ask you, as a black person, what prestige badges do you have that white people accept? As a black person, what prestige badges do you create that white people accept that you're valid and what you have to say means something? You don't have any because they hold all the cards in that particular power dynamic. So what we've created is a bunch of black leadership based on these prestige badges. And as soon as you say something to them about you don't like the fact that they're doing something, they throw the prestige badge cards on the table and say, well, this is the reason why I'm qualified because I got this prestige badge. I got this college degree. I got these credentials from this Anglo-Saxon institution. I got this military background, whether it's current or former. I got this police background, whether it's current or former. I'm a pastor. It's the same prestige badges that they use over and over and over and over and over again to get the masses of poor and working class people to believe that these particular people are credible. And because we don't understand prestige badges and how they work on us mentally, we accept what they say because they have the prestige badge. Now, let me tell you what made me different than a lot of people. This is how me and my people, how I see leadership. If leadership gonna hold me accountable, I'm gonna hold them accountable. If leadership gonna hold me to a standard, I'm gonna hold them to a standard. So it's hard to lead me because the same standard you holding me to, I'm holding you to that same standard. I'm sharpening my knife every night. Why? Because if you fall from that standard, we're gonna get you up out of here. Because you can't lead me and do what you want to do. I'm not going for that. Because the same way you looking at me, I'm looking at you. But we created a world in which people get into leadership and their attitude is that I'm not accountable to the people that I'm leading. No, you accountable to me. Because I'm looking at you the same way you looking at me. The same criteria you holding me to, I'm holding you to that same criteria. But the way they built this world is that once you get into leadership, the people under you cannot hold you accountable. And that's the problem with this world. The problem with black people is we don't hold our leaders to a very strict criteria. And we don't decide if they don't fit that criteria, we gonna get them up out of here by any means necessary. Okay, that's the problem. And because we don't do that, we continue to get bad leadership. We continue to get fooled by prestige badges, right? And we continue to never ever to get back to what we got. Because like I said, we advocated for change. We put leadership in position that was supposed to help make this change the status quo. And what they did is they gave all our gains right back to the power structure, which is why things we are right now today. You got black people born today that are never going to get any kind of benefit from affirmative action policy. Why? Because they gave it all back. So their ancestors advocated for this particular policy, but they never going to get a benefit from it. Why? Because they gave it all back. And nobody wants to deal with that. So we're seeing that affirmative action policy is being given to every group, but the people that brought it out in the first place. And that's a problem for me, but it's not something that you can talk about because so many of our people have been indoctrinated by prestige badges. All you got to do is put the badge on the table and everybody just follows a program like it's a script inside their head. So I wanted to bring this to you because I think this is a major challenge for black people and black leadership as we move into the future. We got to really start examining why we think somebody is credible and what prestige badges they're using to get credibility in our mind. Because like I said, is that you got to get the person to believe in the prestige badge first before you roll the badge out on them. And then two, how come we don't hold our leadership as accountable as they hold us? If you going to hold my feet to the fire, I'm going to hold your same feet to the fire. If you going to hold me to a standard, I'm going to hold you to that same standard. And when you start playing that game with a lot of people, you realize how many people don't want to be in leadership because they want to be in leadership because they think that's a safe space for them to do what they want to do. You understand me? So if you got any questions about this, hit me up in the comments. This is David W. Williams. I hope you got some value from it. I'll talk to you later.